Hey everybody, it's Party Elite here with another episode of Total Breakdown. This time we're going to see a very high tier match between Quarterbest and Imperator as they lead the Wood Elves against the Lizardmen on the Cliff of Beasts. We begin, of course, with talk of composition and deployment in both sides, keeping things relatively simple and thankfully not too much of a kiting build from the Wood Elves today. I know you guys are getting tired of watching that, so trying to avoid it a little bit. The Glade Lord up in the air is in charge. We also have a Spellsinger of Life on horseback back here. The front line consists of a pair of War Dancers in the middle and a pair of Dryads on either flank providing support. Behind them, we've got this line of Glade Guard with Starfire shafts, and behind them, we've got a pair of Eternal Guard, while all the way at the back on either side, we have these Wild Riders with shields. On the other side of the field, you can see we have the Lizardmen being led by a Slann Mage Priest of High Magic. The front line consists of a unit of Skink Cohort on either flank and a center consisting entirely of Saurus Warriors with shields, using their shields to stay protected from ranged support. The Cold One Spear Riders back here are anti-large and armor piercing, while up front here we have these 4 units of Chameleon Skinks already creeping forward, while a pair of Bastiladon with Solar Engine are going to keep enemy range support at bay and busy at all times, as they are artillery pieces that can cause a lot of damage and keep the Wood Elves on their toes. So let's take a look at how this all breaks down. Immediately you can see both forces are sort of pivoting, getting ready for some head-on engagements so that they can get some nice clean lines going on, while the Chameleon Skinks, you can see, are pushing forward, hoping to get a little adventurous and maybe fire into the flanks of the enemy. The Bastiladon with Solar Engine as well are going to take advantage of not only the range superiority they have, also the ability to imbue blindness, and also the magical damage they can cause. So you can rest assured that those Bastiladon with Solar Engine are going to be very important for the Lizardmen. They're creeping forward and looking to get some shots off right away, and already you can see that aggression. These Dryads are going to take a decent hit over here, a fair bit of damage being dealt there, not a bad call whatsoever. Dryads are, once again, physically resistant, so the magical ammunition of the Solar Engine is going to cause damage to them nonetheless. So good call there, doing a little bit of damage to that left flank, hurting these Dryads a touch, and as the armies push forward, those targets will very quickly shift to being these Glade Guard instead. To the side over here, you can see the Glade Lord is pushing forward, chasing after some of these Skink Cohort, doing a touch of damage here and there, and now we've got some initial shots into the Glade Guard back here with their Starfire shafts. A good hit over there, taking a sliver of health off, but that is enough to cause some initial damage and, I guess, fear in the enemy player's mind. At the same time, though, the Chameleon Skinks over here do get spotted, and almost instantaneously you can see these Wild Riders have been sent off to the side there to deal with that aggression, to see what else is going on over here and maybe shut down some of this ranged support as it pushes through. The front lines, meanwhile, are pushing towards each other, very close to colliding. The Cold One Spear Riders as well, navigating off to that left flank over there to hopefully shut down the Wild Riders, and you can see we've got these frontline charges about to start as these Glade Guard all get within range. They're about to fire away and hope to get a fair bit of damage in. I think some of these shots are fire at will, but slowly you can see a little bit of focus coming in towards these Bastiladon with Solar Engine. At the same time over here, these Wild Riders are trying their best to close the gap to the Chameleon Skinks over here, but beautiful split, sending these guys off to the right and to the left to ensure that the Wild Riders are going to be shot at from multiple directions, while these Cold One Spear Riders are trying to close the gap. At the same time over here, you can see we've got these War Dancers closing the gap over here, immediately assisted by Flesh to Stone. Good call over there, trying to keep their armor up to make sure that the Saurus Warriors over here aren't able to do too much, but unfortunately they get support from the Hand of Glory, increasing their melee attack significantly, and that is going to help the Lizardmen come out on top in that central position over here as well. You can see these War Dancers pushing in, and they're going to be absolutely surrounded by those Saurus Warriors, and off to the side over here, these Dryads as well pushing forward alongside these ones, and these Wild Riders as well trying to close the gap here and get busy as quickly as possible. The Bastiladon with Solar Engine, meanwhile, being focused down on by all of this range support, doing a lot of damage over there, but in comes a shot over there, trying to get some decent hurt into these Dryads. Unfortunately, not the best shot, does just a sliver of damage, and at the same time this right flank is having a tough time, so the War Dancers get some help using regrowth to keep them alive. At the same time, as these Cold One Spear Riders get closer, you can see the Wild Riders here pulling back into safety, while the Eternal Guard are pushing forward to intercept with their anti-large and armor-piercing capabilities, and they will eat a decent charge over here from the Cold One Spear Riders as they are in motion, but you can rest assured that as the Eternal Guard sort of get their footing and the second unit of Eternal Guard as well push in, the Cold One Spear Riders are going to be in a very tough situation, especially as these Wild Riders as well coming in for a counter charge. They're going to do a lot of damage to these Cold One Spear Riders, so beautifully played there by both sides of the field. Unfortunately, the Lizardmen get caught out of position a little bit, but you can see the front lines here are absolutely falling apart for the Wood Elves. We've got these Dryads routing, we've got these War Dancers routing as well. They're all pulling back, but we also have the Bastiladon over here completely destroyed, despite Cold-Blooded coming in. All of that fire coming in from the range support is doing a lot of work to just eliminate the Bastiladon, and at the same time over here, this Bastiladon with Solar Engine has been hit by the Prey of Anathrema that allows the Glade Lord to just kind of keep it in place, and in comes all of that range support, just dropping that health, dropping that morale, doing a lot of work. These Wild Riders over here, meanwhile, push in to support the center, get a beautiful rear charge into these Source Warriors with shields, trying to keep these War Dancers in the middle here alive as the rest of that front line, as I mentioned earlier, is completely falling apart back here. At the same time, you can see the Wild Riders, after having got a clean charge on the Cold One Spear Riders, are pulling back once more, chasing after some of these Chameleon Skinks, but the Chameleon Skinks are, of course, able to fire away and get some poison damage into the Wild Riders and slow them down. The Eternal Guard, though, are doing a beautiful piece of work on the Cold One Spear Riders. Those Cold One Spear Riders need to pull back, and these Skink cohort over here has managed to close the gap, and it's causing a fair bit of hurt to the Eternal Guard. They're, of course, not really equipped for that situation. The Glade Guard now as well need to pull back into safety, and the Glade Guard cannot fire backwards while moving, so unfortunately, as these Source Warriors are all closing their gaps, the Glade Guard can only pull away, and thankfully are able, however, to fire into these Chameleon Skinks over here. At the same time, over here, you can see we've got Earthblood going down, trying to keep these Wild Riders alive, and they do need to pull away into safety, but you can see these War Dancers as well completely routing, so a terrible frontline situation for the Wood Elves. And over here as well, you can see the Eternal Guard are completely being taken care of. These Chameleon Skinks are able to fire away, and over here, while these gaps are closing towards the Glade Guard, we have the Spellslinger of Life pushing in to intercept the Source Warriors over here, and now these Glade Guard are able to fire away into the backs and into the sides of these Source Warriors with shields, immediately getting them to rampage, reducing their health and morale significantly. But at the same time, you can see back here, we've got the Wild Riders pushing into these Chameleon Skinks, getting one of them to completely shatter, and the other two are now engaged in melee as well. Not the best situation for the Wild Riders, as we also have these Cold One Spear Riders coming in for a beautiful rear charge. They just need to close that gap. And up here, you can see a beautiful use of banishment coming in from that Slann Mage Priest, dropping right into the middle of the Glade Guard with Starfire Shafts over here. Unfortunately, a little too late to stop them from destroying this unit of Source Warriors with shields, but that banishment does a lot of work, and we also have the Skink cohort here closing the gap, maybe taking a touch of damage from that banishment that has gone a little off to the side there, but this does cause a fair bit of hurt to the Glade Guard, and with the Skink cohort able to close the gap, these Glade Guard now once more have to pull back into safety. And over here you can see we've got these Dryads trying to hold the line against a unit of Source Warriors, well, two units of Source Warriors. These guys are routing. We've got these War Dancers willing to fight once more, and over here you can see we've got these Source Warriors once again getting the assistance of Hand of Glory, hoping to close the gap and cause a fair bit of hurt to potentially these Wild Riders over here, or maybe even the Spellslinger of Life. These Wild Riders, though, get a glorious rear charge into these Chameleon Skinks as they get one last shot or one last volley off, slowing the Wild Riders down ever so slightly, but that charge comes in beautifully, throwing these Chameleon Skinks around, dropping their health, dropping their morale, both to about 50% in one fell swoop. Morale goes down even further. They're very close to giving up on the fight. You can see also these Source Warriors over here that are rampaging completely out of control, are willing to stay engaged in that situation. Back here, the Chameleon Skinks alongside the Cold One Spear Riders have managed to shut down those Wild Riders completely. They are now routing, while over here you can see as these Skink cohort give chase to this unit of Glade Guard, these Glade Guard are able to fire away into their back. So good use there, good split there to make sure that the range units don't all get shut down all at once. Meanwhile, over here you can see we've got the Dryads being completely taken care of despite the help coming in from the War Dancers and the secondary unit of Dryads over there as well. In the center you can see we've got the Wild Riders over here hit by the Blood Statuette of Spite, causing a tremendous amount of damage to their health, dropping their will to fight as well. And we have these Source Warriors that are rampaging, staying engaged. They're doing a lot of damage to those Wild Riders, eliminating that mobility that the Wild Riders and the Wood Elves entirely are depending on a little bit. Over here as well, you can see these Wild Riders still on the route there. I think the Cold One Spear Riders are hoping to take care of them once and for all, completely shatter them perhaps, and at the same time now these Glade Guard have to pull back into safety as there is basically nothing protecting them from all of these threatening Lizardmen units, and the Slann Mage Priest is also closing the gap here, willing to get involved as these rampaging units don't really keep control of themselves, so they're just trying to close the gaps willy-nilly, not really in control of their minds and their sort of primal instinct over here. But we do have these Chameleon Skinks coming in from the side as well, hoping to close the gap and actually slowing down these Glade Guards. So beautifully done there, firing their poisonous darts there, slowing down the Glade Guard, allowing the Source Warriors to close the gap despite their speed situation. They're able to close the gap and more or less shut down this Glade Guard with Starfire Shaft unit. Off in the distance as well, you can see we've got these Source Warriors with shields chasing after this unit of Glade Guard, and these guys are able to get away because of all of that rampaging. They're able to pull back into safety and turn around and fire potentially, while the Spellslinger of Life as well pulling back into safety alongside this unit of Glade Guard. Off in the distance, you can see we have these Dryads pulling back in. We also have the Glade Lord looking for an opportunity to dive in perhaps into the Slann Mage Priest of High Magic, while off in the distance we have a lot of units now rallying, willing to come back into the fight. These Wild Riders with shields managed to get a nice charge into the Skink cohort over here, but they are getting the assistance of Hand of Glory. Once again, that boost to melee attack makes a huge difference when up against something like these Wild Riders, who already have a pretty paltry or middling melee defense to begin with. But you can see those Wild Riders immediately pull back into safety as these Glade Guard are very quickly giving up on the fight. Unfortunately, Rampage does fall off these Source Warriors, so they give up the chase for a little while, which is quite unfortunate. But thankfully, again, with the use of poison, these Glade Guard are being kept slow. Back here, meanwhile, you can see the Slann Mage Priest does get hit by the Prey of Anathrema, allowing the Glade Lord to just dive right in. And immediately as a response, you can see we've got these Chameleon Skinks turning around and firing away at the Glade Lord back here. And we might also have, you see, the Source Warriors turning around and giving chase to this beautiful opportunity to shut down that Glade Lord, to defeat Wood Elf leadership right now. You can see as well, we've got this unit of Chameleon Skinks closing the gap on the Glade Guard over here, forcing them to rout, while these guys are able to pull back into safety. At the same time, though, over here, take a look at this. Take a look at the exchange of damage happening over here. We've got the Slann Mage Priest at about 50% health almost, in the same situation for the Glade Lord as well. Very low on morale as well, so a terrible situation for the Glade Lord to get stuck in. She needs to get out of there. We have a little bit of support in the form of Apotheosis coming in for the Slann Mage Priest of High Magic, and you can see the Glade Lord does decide to pull back into safety as she begins to waver. So good call there, trying to stay away from all of these very threatening units. The poison was slowing her down as well, but she is able to take to the air. Back here, meanwhile, you can see the Glade Guard get completely shut down and routed. They're giving up on the fight, while over here, once more, the Dryads now getting hit by the Blood Statuette of Spite, using that ability to great effect, causing a fair bit of damage over here. And you can see the Slann Mage Priest as well as these Saurus Warriors and the Chameleon Skinks just diving in on those Dryads, hoping to eliminate a unit and free up some more room for the Lizardmen. Over here, you can see the Spellsinger of Life has kind of thrown her life away a little bit, diving into these Source Warriors with shields, hoping to keep them in place, allowing these Dryads to come in from the side and allowing the Glade Guard back here as well to turn around and open fire. Great call over there. Beautiful splits that we're seeing with these ranged units, pulling back, turning around and opening fire, and again, focusing down on the central situation, getting one of these guys to rout. The Dryads come in, allowing the Spellsinger of Life to pull back into safety, and now the fire can just easily switch to this other unit of Source Warriors as well, getting their morale to drop significantly, getting them to rout as well. These Dryads have given up on the fight. Unfortunately, a fair bit of friendly fire is probably doing a decent bit of damage, considering the fire damage from the Starfire shafts, of course, but take a look at the amount of work being done here. These guys are all beginning to rout or rampage or overall give up on the fight. Back here, though, you can see these Wild Riders decided to dive in on the Slann Mage Priest, very quickly taken care of. They have to pull back into safety as they rout away the Eternal Guard as well. Now, willing to come back over here as the Glade Lord dives in to these Cold One Spear Riders. A bit of a dangerous situation for her to be in. These Cold One Spear Riders are, of course, anti-large and armor-piercing, so they can turn right around and cause a fair bit of damage to the Glade Lord, but she decides to risk it all, stays engaged for a little bit, hoping to bait that charge from the Cold One Spear Riders, and of course they do oblige, but in comes the Prey of Anathrema, holding them in place. The Glade Lord pushes in to get another charge in there, but the Eternal Guard are able to push in now and eliminate that unit of Cold One Spear Riders once and for all. Beautifully done. Unfortunately, we do have some assistance coming in from the Hand of Glory, again providing that extra melee attack that's going to help them significantly, and you can see over here the Spellsinger of Life pulling back, hoping to maybe charge into some of these Skink cohort, get them to shatter rather than just rout, and off in the distance, despite the Hand of Glory, you can see the Cold One Spear Riders are falling apart. Of course, those Eternal Guard are anti-large and armor-piercing. Over here, you can see the Glade Guard are firing away at the Source Warriors, I think hoping to make them shatter completely, while this unit of Glade Guard continues to peel away and try to keep a safe distance from all of these Source Warriors. But you can see these Glade Guard are able to turn around now and focus and provide some assistance to this unit of Glade Guard as they're trying to pull back and maybe try and shut down some of these Source Warriors with shields. Again, if they can get shots into their sides or into their backs, the shields count for nothing, and that'll be absolutely wonderful in taking down their health and morale. Off in the distance, you can see we've got the Glade Lord sort of regrouping alongside that Spellsinger of Life, maybe again hoping to eliminate some of these units once and for all, maybe push back here and provide some support, but you can see again, in come those shots, beautifully done here, dropping some of these Source Warriors with shields, making sure that they're not really willing to fight, dropping their health, dropping their morale, and these Glade Guard just have to keep a distance here, just have to keep that gap open, nice and wide, allowing those range shots to come in for as long as possible. And you can see the Glade Lord as well as the Spellsinger of Life getting involved over here if necessary, while off in the distance we do have these Chameleon Skinks pushing forward, potentially getting a nice rear charge into the Glade Guard over here. So a dangerous situation for them as well as the poison damage comes in, but you can see we've got a nice split from the Source Warriors as well, hoping to chase after both of these ranged units, but unfortunately as the Glade Lord and the Spellsinger of Life come in, this is going to be a tough situation for both of these units of Source Warriors with shields. The Glade Lord just looking for an opportunity to dive in. In she goes, and she's going to cause a fair amount of damage both to health and to morale, of course. Beautiful work there, getting these guys to respond and dive in. The Spellsinger of Life as well, pushing in to get some work of her own in, diving into battle there against the Source Warriors with shields, allowing these Glade Guard to fire in and get a decent bit of support, get these guys to maybe waver, maybe rout. There's one rout. The Spellsinger of Life in a dangerous situation, though, needs to pull back into safety, as over here you can see these Glade Guard are firing away at some of these Cold One Spear Riders. We've got that distance support coming in as well from the other unit of Glade Guard, firing away these Cold One Spear Riders, but unfortunately, it's not going to be enough to shut them down. It's going to cause a fair bit of damage to health, but they are still able to punch right through the Glade Guard with Starfire Shafts, get a nice charge in there, and cause a fair bit of damage as these guys are, well, They've got 91 kills to their name, so they've been doing a lot of work, and finally the Cold One Spear Riders are able to push in and shut them down, hopefully once and for all. We have the Glade Lord over here getting another unit to rout, while off in the distance, the Glade Guard is still firing away at the Cold One Spear Riders over here, again, just hoping to break them, hoping to get them to give up on the fight, and their morale is very low. Their health is significantly low as well. You can see they are now wavering. These Glade Guard are able to stay in melee for long enough to help these guys give up. Apotheosis comes in to try to replenish some hit points over there, while the Glade Guard themselves are also getting a little bit of assistance, and you can see the Apotheosis is just not good enough to keep these Cold One Spear Riders alive, though we do have now these Chameleon Skinks coming in from the rear, ultimately causing these Glade Guard to give up on the fight. They are wavering, and in just a moment's time, you're going to see with that full surround happening, these guys are going to start routing, and there you have it. The Chameleon Skinks get Hand of Glory added to them, helps their reload skill a little bit. The melee attack buff is a little useless now, as the Glade Guard are already routing, but it is what it is. Unfortunately, maybe a little mistimed over there, as off in the distance, you can see the Glade Lord just chasing after these various units, as well as the Spellslinger, making sure that these routes stay as routes, maybe even turn into shatters. There's one shatter right there, and perhaps the Spellslinger of Life can pull the same thing off over here. Unfortunately, up front, you can see those Glade Guard completely shattered and gave up on the fight, dropped their flags, and have left a couple of stray shots still taking care of the standing units. Useless shots, unfortunately. And over here again, you can see Apotheosis coming in to try and keep these Cold One Spear Riders alive, and that's not a bad call whatsoever. They're anti-large, they're armor piercing, and they can really help eliminate the Glade Lord back here, as she decides to push in and provide some support to the Spellslinger of Life over here in getting these Saurus Warriors to potentially completely shatter. At the same time, you can see a little bit of regrouping going on. We've got the Lizardmen sort of grouping up over here, forming a nice little clump. We've got the Wood Elves as well, pushing off to the side over here, maybe potentially trying to form a nice little clump over here or somewhere over here, allowing these Eternal Guard as well to pull back into some semblance of a formation over here as well. These Dryads just kind of uselessly giving chase to these Chameleon Skinks. These Skink cohort here hoping to close the gap and maybe eliminate the Dryads as quickly as possible. A little bit of a sandwich maneuver going on over there, trying to get a front and rear charge on these Dryads, maybe hoping to drop them and at least reduce the number of units that the Lizardmen have to worry about. So great rear charge there from the Chameleon Skinks, ultimately destroying that unit of Dryads, getting them to rout, completely shatter, and die off. And you can see again, these Glade Guard out of ammunition are peeling to the side over here. We also have the Eternal Guard here being joined by the Glade Lord as well as the Spellslinger of Life, and right now the Glade Lord is pushing forward, getting a little adventurous, hoping to use what ammunition is left, and there's a fair bit of ammunition left, in fact, to try and cause a little bit of damage. So she's just posting off to the side there, taking a look at what the potential targets are, gets a nice shot into this Cold One Spear Rider, and actually manages to drop one. So good snipe there, causing a fair bit of hurt, adding to that kill count that is now up at 49. So the Glade Lord has been quite effective in battle, and the Cold One Spear Riders are, again, a very important unit. So great call there, focusing down on the Cold One Spear Riders, and again, I think trying to get another shot in there, hoping to eliminate that anti-large capability, while over here you can see the Eternal Guards are trying to push in to charge into these Chameleon Skinks. They're going to get a little bit of assistance through regrowth, helping their physical resistance and also adding to their hit point pool, obviously replenishing some hit points, but back here as well, the Apotheosis coming in to help the Cold One Spear Riders. Now, the Eternal Guard here hoping to really close the gap and take advantage of that physical resistance, as the melee may perhaps begin, and in come the charges. The Skink cohort get a counter charge into the Eternal Guard, and fortunately regrowth is still active, and that's certainly going to help. But unfortunately, we have these Chameleon Skinks over here firing into the backs of these Eternal Guard. The Spellslinger of Life decides that she might need to throw her life, at risk once again, but the Chameleon Skinks are trying to pull back into safety. Spellslinger decides to pull back into safety herself as well. We've got one route over here. If the Eternal Guard can continue pushing through and chase after the Chameleon Skinks, we can get them to rout as well. Over here, the Skink cohort completely shatters, so good situation here. The Spellslinger of Life now feels a bit more confident, I think, to dive in. In comes another route, and these Chameleon Skinks unfortunately are able to continue firing away into the backs of these Eternal Guard as they try to push in and get two shatters in that left situation. Over here, meanwhile, you can see Apotheosis comes in for the Saurus Warriors with shields. I don't know if that was the best call. Apotheosis would have perhaps been better on these Cold One Spear Riders, but of course the Eternal Guard will be able to now take care of the Cold One Spear Riders as they turn around and try to close the gap to these Chameleon Skinks, and the Chameleon Skinks quite confidently firing away at the Eternal Guard, trying to stop them in their tracks, trying to slow them down and cause enough damage and potentially drop their morale by enough to force them to turn around. Blood Statue of Spike comes in as well, causing a lot of hurt, but the Glade Lord is now pushing in as well, trying to provide some support, able to provide some support rather if they decide to dive into melee, but you can see the Eternal Guard are eating a lot of damage. The Blood Statue of Spike is extremely powerful. Both of these Chameleon Skinks are out of ammunition, so at least the Wood Elves are safe from that aspect. We have a beautiful clump over here, forming these guys up and then using Earthblood to replenish hit points, however much is possible. Over here as well, you can see we've got the Glade Guard out of ammunition, able to get a nice charge over here, acting as a bit of a distraction perhaps, using them as a sandwiching tool. We've got Apotheosis coming in once more onto these Saurus Warriors with shields, hoping to maybe use Fear against Glade Guard, but in comes the Glade Lord, diving to the backs of these Chameleon Skinks, the Spellsinger of Life as well, once more charging into battle heroically, hoping to get some damage done of her own. Good charge over there, causing a fair bit of hurt. The Eternal Guard slowly but surely moving into battle as well, and you can see the Slann Mage Priest is doing a fair bit of damage here, causing a lot of damage to these Glade Guard, and the Glade Lord needs to find a way to engage that Slann Mage Priest of high magic, and the Slann decides to dive in towards the Glade Lord, and in response the Glade Lord dives in as well. That's a terrible situation for the Slann Mage Priest. In comes some more Earthblood, trying to keep all of these Wood Elf units alive. As you can see over here, these Saurus Warriors are completely shattered, giving up on the fight. The Chameleon Skinks just barely holding on to their will to fight, and the Cold One Spear Riders chasing after the Glade Lord ultimately get tied down by the Eternal Guard over here. So beautifully done by the Glade Lord, baiting those Cold One Spear Riders, but they are able to retreat more or less immediately while these Chameleon Skinks begin to rout completely off in the distance as well. You can see these Chameleon Skinks once more willing to return to the fight, and they do have some ammunition, so they can be a little bit of a threat. But over here you can see these Glade Guard were beating down these Cold One Spear Riders, who were of course trying to pull away and get a nice charge into the Spellsinger of Life, trying to eliminate some of that encouragement, try to eliminate some of that magical support, and you can see some more routes coming in now. These Cold One Spear Riders giving up on the fight. We've got these Chameleon Skinks as well giving up on the fight off in the distance. These Chameleon Skinks trying to push in and get a nice charge into the backs of these Eternal Guard. You can see magic being thrown around. We've got the Spellsinger of Life using her magic, and we've got the Slann Mage Priest as well using his magic to try and cause damage to the enemy as well as possible. In comes the Glade Lord once again, a beautiful charge over here, trying to cause that fear, trying to cause that charge bonus damage, a decent charge bonus on the Glade Lord, a charge bonus of 70, I should say, so not a bad call at all, trying to cycle charge over here while off in the distance. You can see these Chameleon Skinks trying to close the gap and get their poison support in there as well. Unfortunately, it's just not enough. We have some more routes going down. These Saurus Warriors with shields not willing to fight anymore over here as well. These Chameleon Skinks again just kind of wavering, not really willing to stick around. The Glade Lord is able to pull back into safety and up into the air once again, turn around and come back in for another side charge, get these Chameleon Skinks to completely rout and give up on the fight. And over here you can see the Slann Mage Priest is actually having an alright time at 50% health, at just about 50% morale as well, but doing a decent bit of damage to these Glade Guard as well as the Eternal Guard. But unfortunately the Glade Lord now has only one target to focus in on, comes in for another charge, does a great deal of damage there, especially to morale, and you can see the Slann Mage Priest is just not willing to stick around and fight anymore. At about 25% health, in comes some more poisonous support from the Chameleon Skinks, but again, just far too little, far too late. These guys are standing their ground and just beating away at the Slann Mage Priest, and ultimately the Toad does decide to shatter, and the rest of the Lizardmen give up on the fight as well. A Pyrrhic victory for the Wood Elves. An insanely close battle in which both sides had to rely on the entirety of their forces, almost to the death of all those involved. Some excellent cycle charging made all the difference in the world, alongside excellent use of flanking and rear charging opportunities, forcing units to break in order to gain the upper hand, no matter how temporary it may have been, and it was done beautifully by both sides of the battlefield. As always, make sure you subscribe to this channel for more Total War content and keep sending in those battle replays. I think it's one of the best ways to learn, and it's always nice to highlight such amazing battles from the community. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you on the battlefield.